All right. Good evening, LinkedIn. Dave Wilson, the Rigor Hire Show. So, how you doing, Amy?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Ready for a great conversation tonight, everybody. Tonight, we're going to be talking about from retention, the cost of recruiting, and then actually probably the cost of turnover. And it's going to be a great night, great discussions. Feel free to ask questions, but I'll be right back after this video. That skip in that video scares the living hell out of me. I'm like, okay, what just happened? What just happened? I look over everything and I don't know why that it's this software for this company here, Evox. I'm going to message them on that little chat support. I should do it live and
There
say,
you
why is it making my video skip? On
go.
that part. So, how's your week been going? Good.
Great, great. A very, very good week. Just
No,
wish it
that's
would get
that's
warmer.
awesome. I love this topic. Like when you brought it up, you wanted to do it. The cost of even recruiting, the cost of retention, the high turnover. It's just got there's when I started to do the research on it, just even yourself, you don't realize there's so many different puzzles or pieces that go into just one thing called retention.
Yeah, it's definitely there's a lot to really think about and make sure that you really focus on what it takes and what all goes into cost per hire.
Right.
So your advertisement, your fingerprints, your badging, the training, the cost of what the trainer makes. So how many hours of training goes into that one person? So there's so many factors that go into it, and it can range anywhere from $1,800 up to thousands and thousands of dollars. So
Yep.
once you truly know what that cost per hire is, that is your you really need to know that. If you don't
I
know
think
that,
everybody should know it. I think it
absolutely.
doesn't matter. I even think I think everybody should know that because
Mhm.
I go crazy sometimes in the companies like when I was working at a branch and you have like 15 companies and you've got two of those companies in that staffing agency that you really want to break up with because if you know what it costs to do business, I had a great boss years ago. She said, she always said, Dave, it's okay to break up with a customer. It's okay to break up because it when you say the cost of just again when you add staffing agencies in there on top of it, like, and we're going to go over all these things, but when you add all that into it, the cost of them and the hey, you got to pay the bills, you got to pay the lights, you got to pay the electric, there's just so
Mhm.
much. I wanted to ask you for the first question though, do you, after looking at everything why people leave work and retention and everything like that, do you really believe in that money is all of it?
Oh, absolutely not. And that's
Thank
so that's
you.
what's so interesting when you ask when I ask the managers in my leadership class.
Right.
The first thing is, well, it's the money. Well, when you look at the statistics and the data that comes in, money is at the bottom part of
Bottom.
it. And it's all about how you feel like on a Sunday, about how, going to work on a Monday. I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel valued? Do you feel like you're part of the company? And you got to
Right.
have the right fit. So that's where hiring for the right fit is it works on both ways of who you go to, who you're hiring, and then what company you're going to go work for. So it's really a two-way street.
Yeah, and you said it right, and that's when I noticed the money was at the bottom. And after going over everything, so I had Googled. I said, all right, let me see some. What is the top companies that have high like in the highest turnover, or then what kind of professions? But the professions are more of a burnout. You
Mhm.
know, like when you look at, they were saying the number one, healthcare professionals, physicians, nurses, emergency medical, and mental health, and teaching and education are one of the highest burnout, which causes retention because they leave.
Right.
You know, but the cost that I can imagine on that end versus when I researched, looked up highest turnover and entry level, it makes sense. The retail sales, that food service, customer
Mhm.
service representatives, hospitality, logistics, security guards, sales reps. But I bet you're smart enough on this list, on this entry level, that you could, I bet if I said every job to you, you would be able to tell me why their turnover is high, because you've done it enough, because
Ye-
it's kind of weird. This is all the same versus
Right.
burnout versus highest turnover there. But the cost, again, in professional services, that is phenomenal.
Right. I mean, when you think about the burnout, I mean, that is not something that is going to turn over in a year. I mean, you're talking over a period of years. And, so you've got that longevity. But, working in retail and, just the manufacturing, like you're going to
Right,
have a lot more turnover. And as long as you know what your average turnover should be,
right,
being able to peel back the layer and find out the why on it. So, I've worked in a company where 3% was the average turnover that we were looking at, and then
right.
I went to another company and it was right around 75%, and that was mind blowing. To I mean, how do you operate with a 75% turnover?
Yeah.
So it's just you just got to know your industry, and then make sure that you are on average, and that the why. I mean, is there
For it.
anything normal going on in a certain location?
Do you feel that, I was thinking today, that in either industry, let's just say, have you ever in your career, when somebody has given their notice and they're leaving, have you ever said, like, why? Let's just stop first. Let's just stop.
Mhm.
Do you feel like it would be a good idea to pull those people in and talk to them and get that why? Yeah, I know there's exit interviews, and that's something different in a way. But I watched today on one of these clips that maybe you should sit down with that employee. Say, why? Why are you leaving? What's going on? If especially you're talking some of your top people,
Right.
they're only going to go to another customer, like somebody does the same type of work. So have you ever done that in your career, or is it something I think that we should do more of to find out that why and go after that?
So that's a reactive approach, and I'm a proactive
Right.
approach person. So, I've developed a program called "How's It Going" survey. So you take the temperature of how things are going in your department, in your company,
Right.
and you can get an idea if something is festering, and if you see that, then you can start finding out the why behind it, and then work towards that. And I think if as long as you're proactive and
Right.
you're actively working on it, and you're not going to solve every problem. I
No.
mean, that's just not going to happen. But as long as you can at least take the temperature of your company, and then find out if you have a sexual harassment happening in a
Right.
location, if you have a manager who does nothing but yell and berate, if you have a manager that lets everybody, come in late and leave early, and sleep on the job.
Wow.
So, I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta just being able to allow people to say what they need to say, and it gets to the right people. That's where it's important, because what I've seen
Yeah.
before is that you take your concerns or your question to a mid manager,
Right.
and they think it's a silly idea. It's poo pooed. It's not going anywhere. But this "How's It Going" survey is going directly to the VP of operations, of HR, and it's going to go to the right people. So you're going to skip all those layers.
And that can
And
be discreet. That's going to be all discreet. That's going to be,
absolutely.
it's kind of like years ago where I was in I'll never forget, at the paper industry back in the 90s, we had those boxes everywhere.
Mhm.
We had them, and people put things in there.
Yeah.
Then people were getting smart, saying, "Oh, they know my handwriting,"
Yep.
But
Mhm.
they would put those things there, and we would read them.
Yep.
The one supervisor there, he said, "Read. Have you read them?" I'm like, "I'm not going to say I read them all." He said, "Sit down and read these things. I'm telling you."
Yeah.
And it might be worded pretty strong back then.
Right.
But like you said, wow, you kind of know what it is, but there it is in writing.
Right, and it would be set up so it's not going to. We're not going to ask your name. If
Right,
you want to give us your name, you can, but I mean, it's not set up that way. And I've had many people ask, well, IT can definitely check it out. Well, yes, IT can always check that out. I mean, if they
right.
really want to find out if you worked, I mean, who that is, they can start figuring that out. Is that really going to happen in my career? I have never been involved with IT
Right,
going and looking at the IP address to see who might have been on that computer to do that. So,
right,
I will never go and say this is definitely going to be, where nobody will ever know. But
right.
if you call yourself out, call your station out, call, something out specifically, yes, they're going to know it's you. But at least being able to give people the avenue to um, get their concerns out there, share what they need to share, and then
Right.
you vet it accordingly and you respond and react accordingly. I mean, there's been some sexual harassment cases that
Yeah.
you find out through that you never would have found out before. So I
Listen,
think
after that Nita Hill event back then, uh, when they told me I was pulled in there and there was this girl complaining to another girl doing cat calls, I'm like, I looked at my man. What the hell? I'm 21 years old. What the hell's a cat call? We didn't have sexual harassment. But you didn't know what to do.
right,
I was like, cat calls, like, meow, like that, like that. No, I didn't know what else to do, but that's what it was. But they finally got HR involved, and HR back then wasn't really into. I don't know. The HR just didn't do the things they do today.
right,
And when they were in there, they had to sit these people down, and you had to write things up and go after things and put them on notice, because if you didn't, let's face it, everybody kind of knew it, and it got out to where, oh, you can do what you want here. No, it wasn't
right.
right. Yeah, it's not
Yep.
right. But I was just like shocked, like a cat call. I'm like, all right, Dave, that's right out of the military, and I'm like, all right, what the hell is this? But do you feel that, and we're going to get more into the retention costs here too, but do you feel that the younger supervisors, say the new supervisors, the middle, managers and everything like that, I think they should actually know all that cost too, and what can they do to improve. They might say, well, I say this and they don't do anything, and people can say, and I've been in that position as a supervisor. I've
Mhm.
said that. Listen, I'm going to admit it. Back in the day, they don't do anything, and I can say all I want.
Right.
But how much is it of the leadership responsible for that, to listen? Because they know what's going on.
It's that was we had a course that was a 2.5 day course for the new leaders, so supervisors and
Right.
managers, and it was really important for them to go through this course because I mean, we're not going to teach you how to drive a tug or check in passengers in the airline. You already know that, but now it's about how to manage and how
Right.
to lead, and there's a lot of components that go into that.
Right.
And we talked about sexual harassment. If you have to, as a leader, you have to know that if somebody tells
Right.
you anything about harassment, you legally have to go and report it. You
Yeah, once you
cannot
do that.
hold that. So those are just some of the things that are discussed in that class. And then, the coaching and counseling, the conflict management. I mean, who really loves having, to deal with that? Hopefully nobody, but you have
Right.
to have the skills. You at least have to know some basics, and then when you're presented with that, give at least a foundation for how to handle it, and then you can go and get questions answered later. But it's important to have a fundamental foundation, because leaders need to have a basic understanding
Right.
of some things, and
And that's
that
where, when we had Andre on, remember,
Mhm.
with Andre, and even yourself, what you're doing, I think sometimes to have that outer person come in.
Mhm.
Like, I like what Andre does is, what back in, again, I always say back in the 90s, but we had people come to, as meetings, we had meetings, and you had speakers, you had people that, because you didn't have laptops, we didn't have the computers, you were taught. I kind of wish that would come back sometimes, because I can just envision, getting the supervisors and some of the managers all together and having someone like yourselves consulting. You're coming in, you're breaking that back, and I think they need a voice to be able to change, or you're going to learn so much from them. Again, they're why the peel back. You're going to learn. So
Right. Yeah, nowadays they've got so many of the online courses,
Right.
and when you have the LMS courses, and you've got to take 15 of these classes that are an hour long, and
Right.
now they have it designed that me, I just want to punch through it and then take the test at the end and get done with it. But they
Right.
want you to sit there for the full hour. I mean, it's so. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
engaging. You're not all it is checking off the box. You're not
Right.
really engaged. I mean,
On that.
you're really part of it. So having the in-person classroom is so much better, because I mean you're there. And for my classes I do activities, and I can tell that Andre does the same thing, so you
Right.
have to be involved. And watching people get the aha moments, and the what's in it for me is great. So I
That's
think having
done it.
that in person, I would love to have them bring that back for
It
sure.
would. And then I wanted to bring up, we talked about, and this is like, we're going to gear it towards the cost of recruitment and all that, but with KPI tools, that live data, that data that you can have, and and I know it, but I kind of didn't realize how much you can do with KPIs in the recruiting market. Like all those insights that like you said, the cost per hire, time to hire, the acceptance rate. There's so many I didn't realize. Let's see, time to hire, cost per hire, candidate quality, offer acceptance rate, sourcing channel effectiveness. There's so many different things that I didn't know that you could
Mhm.
design your KPIs towards.
Yeah, and even how long it takes you to hire from what I call birth to death. Being able, like when you post a job until the time they actually start. There's
Right.
so many nuances that have to happen, and when making sure that it doesn't get away from you, and if it
Right.
does get away from you, and if it's supposed to take 60 days, and now you're on 90 days, why, what happened, and
What
then being
happened?
able to peel back the layer on what happened. And then, is it a process issue? Is it, like, what was it a department issue,
Right.
candidate issue? So being able to really hone in on that. So all those metrics really do make a big difference, and it helps drive your decisions, and what you're going to do next. But
It's
KPIs are definitely important.
Yeah, and for those don't know, that your key performance indicators, but I've been in logistics so long, and I've never really, I was always in charge of staffing and everything, but I never. It, Home Depot Logistics Center was my first one that I was a performance manager, that I really learned about logistics, because I didn't. I was like, man, if everybody knew what would go on in these centers just to get that product to their stores, you could not, these KPI, you could not be late. You're talking nothing stayed in there. It
Mhm.
had to come in. You
Mhm.
had your sales, Father Day, stuff like that. Everything had to be on those store shelves at a certain time. And if you didn't get to it, let me tell you, boy, they had meetings upon meetings of
Mhm.
what happened. So it didn't happen again, but they did it. Sometimes they did it very strong, to where you were kind of like, wow, this is like a yelling, kind of like a really verbal. All right. But then sometimes it was very valuable of listening to, okay, what are we going to do to fix this? A
Right.
different tone, a different tone, not
Yes.
not the anger of wow, because you're sitting there and you're saying, wow, I didn't realize what they have to do to get that to the stores.
Right. And that was something that I call it a walk a mile.
Right.
It's something that I find very powerful. And for example, in the airline, we had the ramp agents that would have to handle the bags that the passenger service agents would put down.
Right.
And if somebody forgot or didn't know that they should be putting a heavy tag on it, anything weighing like over 25 pounds or over 50 pounds, and you don't put a heavy tag on it, the ramp's not going to know that. And if they see this small package and then they go to pick it
Back.
up and they throw their back out, because we at passenger service didn't put that tag on there. So I brought up the ramp so they could see what we
Right.
do at the ticket counter and everything that goes on. And then I had the passenger service agents go down to the ramp, and then so they could see. So it was truly a walk a mile. So it was a better appreciation and understanding of why we had to do what we did, because they could literally throw their back out and be out hopefully just for a day. But throwing your back out, you could be out for good, or you're going to have
Yeah.
surgery. So
And the,
there's
the thing I like when you're saying that is, I'm always like thinking, when you're saying that, I was thinking to myself, okay, a couple other companies. I'm not throwing anybody out there, because I think everybody's been in these positions.
Mhm.
When safety, I think, is a lot different now than it was years and years ago. Your safeties that you can go broke with it on your P&L. You know yourself, all these workers' comp stuff, and you got to do something. And a lot of people think, well, we're coming at you for that. No, again, I'm going to go back to Home Depot Logistics. They were one of the companies for the safest. I'll tell you what, you had an injury, you had anything, again, you were in those meetings, and you better have some answers of
Mhm.
why. Because if it happened twice, like that generator, you got a person over there picking it up by hand. It's a two-man lift. But you got that person that's in a rush. He wants to get it done. Now he pulls his back out. Now you're talking what a cost that is by
Right.
not following the process. So the safety, and like you said, has a lot to do with that.
Well, and even having a safety review. So on that, what you were just talking about, there should be like at least five different people from different departments that
Right.
should be on that. So you call that person in, you get their manager on. You have specific questions that you ask. When was your last day off? When your
Right.
all your hours and all your training and things like that. You're pulling the training records. I mean, you're literally pulling everything you can on this person and the
Right.
event. So you're looking at it from step by step to find out what went wrong.
We're
Again, is this a process issue? Was it an employee issue? Was it a management issue? Was it equipment issue? So getting down to that granular detail.
right.
And if it is a process issue, then you know what direction to go in. But I mean, all that is so important to really make sure, and you take it seriously. I mean, it can't
Right.
just be like if you have enough people, like it has to happen. You have to have that conversation, and
Yep.
then that same thing happens again. I mean, you got to figure out what direction you're going to go in. But yeah.
A short story. When I got out of the military, our whole family, my mom and dad were in the paper industry, James River. So we all went there, and all the boys out of the military, we all became the supervisors and managers of my parents. Well, my dad was on my shift and my dad was using this big hammer thing on this thing for the paper roll that he was hitting, and he wasn't supposed to be using that. So he hit it, and he hit his knee, and he had to go to the hospital and get checked out, and he was off for a couple of days. So it was a lost injury. Well, my superintendent says, Dave, you're going to have to write your father out. It's a union environment now. I'm 21 years old. These people are twice my age. And I'm like, so I go up to my dad. I'm like, Dad, listen, you shouldn't have been using that. Yeah, but it doesn't, Dad, I got to write you. I said, just do me a favor. When they close the door, just play the game, right? But just know I have to do this. And everybody's laughing. He made me do it. I said, can you have somebody else do it? My dad was going off on me in there with a union rep, and I'm just like, at the end of the day, you shouldn't have been using that hammer, and that is the reason why. But
I'm
there
here.
again, it was, oh my God, I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. But he
Oh, I love
played
that.
along with it. He's like, oh, I'm not. But what do you think makes a lot of employees, even when it comes to that? I know we're going back and forth here too. Um, why do employees even feel that management's doing it to write them up, to go after them? Oh, they just want to fire you. No, I didn't want to fire my dad. I just want to make sure he's safe, and don't do
Right.
that. That is the reason why
Yeah.
you're going to end up in a hospital.
So I think too many times when employees see management, they think it's only be for negativity.
Right.
And I think that as leaders, we've got to be there. We got to be present, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yep.
So you can't just show up when it's time to write somebody up. And you don't show up just because there's somebody brought in
Right.
pizza. Like you've got to be present. You've got to be there. You've got to have that communication
Right.
and know. I mean, be genuine about it. I mean, at the end of the day, your job is to go make sure that your employees go home safely.
Right.
And working in the airlines, I mean, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
other companies that are just as dangerous. But I mean, you've got to have that genuine approach on making sure that your employees are doing things safe and the why behind it.
Yep.
And we were talking before the show, somebody with long hair getting there close to a belt loader. I mean, yeah, I'm going to yell and I'm going to write them up and I'm going to make sure that they get their hair up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so approach and delivery is very important. But
Right.
making sure that your team knows that you've got a job to do and
Yep.
safety is not going to be second. So
I
it's
always bring it up to an employee and say, listen, if this was your business, seriously, just think of it this way. This was your business. You own 10 people working here. And that happened a couple times, and you saw what that cost you. Again, it goes back to, this is just some of the things that we're going over that affect the safety does affect retention. It does.
Mhm.
That's a big part of it because, like you said, that costs. But if what would you do to your employee? You know what I mean? Put it back. And I like doing
Mhm.
this. Like, would you accept that, or do you want somebody to get hurt and go to the hospital and you got to pay that bill and you're mad because you got to pay the bill, but at the end of the day, you still want to make sure your employee's safe, you know?
Right.
But you need to get that point across to say, listen, man, we don't want to see you get hurt. I think, like you said, I think you said like the approach of it, the wording. You always talk
Yeah.
about the wording. I think it's the way you word it to that employee that'll be really. It's going to go either way on you, this way or that way. It's going to be
Right.
negative or positive. And I think you can go to that positive direction and say it the right way. And I think you can't come back with anything.
Right. And I mean, really, just you've already said it. Like, what would you, if you were in my shoes, what would
Right.
you do? And I mean,
Exactly.
you're not going to have too many people, say otherwise. And
Right.
I think most times when people do something wrong, they understand. But then the other times they just don't know the why behind it.
Right.
And is it something that it's just a preference to the manager, or is this the rules and regulations
Right.
and for safety purposes? So if it's just your preference, I mean, let's you figure out what hill you're going to die on, kind of thing. Like, what are you
Right.
really going
I like
to do?
that.
Yeah. So
I love
just
it.
make sure that as a manager, you're there. You're not always just there when it's firing somebody or writing
Fire
somebody up. You've got to be present all the time.
all the time. And they talk about with the KPIs even on there about improving the process as you're doing it. And it brings up about some of the tools. Listen, with the new tools that we have nowadays for software for recruitment. And again, when you do some of this research like this, there's a lot of naturally AI generated stuff. And I really believe you got to get aboard with that soon. A lot of people, I know some people are fighting it, but 10 years from now, come on, you got to really jump onto that because some of these companies, like your your applicant tracking systems, you really need a good one. You want one because how much do you feel that hiring that right person, in retention? So if you're not hiring the right person, if you
Mhm.
don't have the right recruiters, that the recruiters that know, what they're looking for, but how important do you feel that is? That's a big importance in the retention and the cost of hiring.
Yeah, and I mean, knowing your applicant tracking system and how it works is
Yep.
really really key, and making sure that doing. I had somebody who was really really good with math and
Right.
statistics and stuff. I wanted to find out. I wanted to have the numbers out there. So if we needed to hire 7 people by the end of September,
Right.
how many people am I going to be interviewing in order to
I get
then
it.
make the right hires, and then those people accepting the job and then passing the drug test,
Right.
getting through the training, and then getting ready. So I want to hire 7 people, but am I going to
Right.
have to interview 200 people to get to that 7?
I get
And
it.
I think when you understand really how much goes into it, you have a better appreciation, and you need a good applicant tracking
But I'm
system.
going to stop you on that part there. How much do you feel though, when I hear what you're saying there, is the percentages? Let's just say it takes the 200 to hire 12 or like that. How much is it? Do companies some just accept that? Like I think you said before about saying, listen, some companies this is what they know. It's going to be certain percentages here, a certain percentage. But I always feel you can do something about it. I mean, that might be if you accept that. I think that at the same time it comes back into your retention. That costs because people leave. They
Mhm.
leave. They don't want to be. They see everything and they just leave. They don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, and I think that data can
Right.
help you drive that and ask questions. Like, you got to know your foundation. You got to know your basis.
Right.
And if you have something that's outside of that, you've got to know the why behind it. And
Again.
and I mean, again, is it a process issue? Is it a personnel issue?
Right.
Equipment issue? I mean, you got to be able to peel back the layers on that.
Because I think once you start tackling these little things like this, you can't do it all. You can't do it all at once. But
Mm-mm.
if you start nipping and but, and again, I go back to those KPIs because here, the tools like companies like HireVue, Premierix, AI, They analyze data for the perfect candidates. You got your words, like you said, for all that. Your chat bots now, you know, that's a cost saving, and it all comes back to the cost of the retention. Because listen, I personally I like chatbots, and I'm going to tell you why. I know I can't. I'll put in there my information or whatever like that, right? And I'm like, I can't figure this out. I know they're going to reach out to me. You know what I mean? They're gonna, if
Mhm.
as soon as you hit that, you're in there. Your email, every single thing you think you got out of it. But my point there is there's a lot of tools that people use that for people that work night shift. They might want to do in the night. They might be applying for jobs. They're the kind of things that comes down. That's part of your cost because
Mhm.
listen, your company's got to pay for that software, right? You got to pay for all those softwares. You got to pay for that app. That applicant tracking system is not cheap. So when you add all that up, the AI tools that are coming, plus, well, let me back up. I think you need to get more tools to lower those other things down, like those AI tools to cut back on your other things here because the cost is just extreme.
Well,
Like,
we got to make sure we have enough training, and not just the one and done training. It can't
right,
just be okay. We put you through a leadership class for 2 days, and now you're done.
you're done.
Good luck and God bless. It can't be that way. You've got to continuously have some training for the managers because you get
Right,
burnt out. You go back to what you've always known, and I mean managers and leaders. And I'm just referencing leader
right.
managers. I'm talking about supervisors, managers, directors, VPs. I mean, everybody needs to make sure that they get that
Get it.
customer approach and and know how to speak to an employee. We're not
Right,
robots, so you got to
right.
make sure that that you're not constantly yelling when you could just be redirecting and
Right.
having a conversation. So I think retention is really more about how leaders are treating the employees. I
Yeah.
think that if you hone in on the leaders and find out what
What is
department is losing a lot of people in a short amount of time, then I mean you can start pinpointing where
pinpoint?
you need to go.
I like the one company. I know the one HR director, and Blue Triton in Breningsville, and Blue Triton all around. Their process for terminating employees, okay, when you have so many for attendance and all whatever terminating, they're not even a union shop. They used to be Nestle Waters, so they do water and all kinds of things. Huge company. What they do is they developed a team of individuals, employees, plus management, a whole team, to where nobody gets terminated on the floor at certain levels, right? To where when it gets to that point, this team meets and goes over every single thing about it and whether they approve that they were going to be terminated. And a lot of people listen and say that's crazy,
I
but
love that.
it you're going to get your HR. Oh, you can't do that. Yes, sure, because the HR department is the one that's doing it. It's a team, and you might say, well, this is where example a person. Listen, you get so many call offs. And that last call off, you had a super bad accident. Your wife, your family. Listen, there's nothing you can do about that, right? And that could have been your terminating point. But you did all those other things to get to that point. But would you terminate an employee because of that? So what I envision is they have these meetings and they talk about it, and if they say no, it's a no. They don't hire. They don't fire the person. And he said it worked very, very well. And they did. They were honest. They did say yes. They did said yes at times to where listen, the person's had 15 call offs. I mean, come on,
Right.
But it was just I just think that was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I like that because I mean you're looking at your
Yeah.
peers are helping to make those decisions, and
Yeah,
when you are part of the solution, you're not
I love
part
it.
of
I
the
love it how
problem.
you said
Like
that.
I mean that's the thing that I love about it is I want people to have the buy-in. So like if something goes wrong, it's not like an immediate oh I told you so I knew it was going to go wrong. Like no, we're all part of this, and we're going to
Right.
figure out how to make it better. We're not going to do this finger pointing. So you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And I want people to be part of the solution.
I love it because I agree with that. And then I love when people tell me, "Oh, big companies can't do that." Okay, I'm just making it up. I'm just making it up. Call them up and say what they do. And I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty cool. I wanted to bring up for like we talked about the recruitment cost and like you said, these job boards ain't free. that Indeed and Zip and all those, let me tell you, when I had my own, and there again, when you have your own company, you're like, you can't kick anybody in the butt but yourself. But when you have to pay $1,000 a month for 5 job postings, and
Mhm.
that's all I had, I was $1,000 a month, and I had to pay for it for a year. So I had no choice. I had to pay the 12th up. I paid that with Career Builder. My point there is that cost a company money, big time with these bigger companies, huge amount of monies. Again, part of the cost of recruiting, not having the right recruiters in the right stage, the cost of retention and the cost per hire. They talk about improving the processes, and we've talked about pretty much right now about doing that. That's part of it. And then there's the cost of again the chatbots, recruitment marketing forums, all the social media, because everybody's on social media. The
Mhm.
companies are paying for that too now. So that is thrown into the cost of recruitment and the retention, because guess what? More employees, we
Mhm.
have to put more out there. And I could go on and on, and it makes you think, because even recruitment for LinkedIn Learning does a lot of courses you can pay for.
Mhm.
Some companies pay for that for people. That costs money. At the end of the day, you have 60% of people leaving. You only
Right.
got so much money you're making to cover and this is nothing, this could go on
Right.
and on and on. The buildings
Yeah.
and insurances and benefits, all that.
Yeah. So I think, it's just there's a lot to unpack, and there's not a one solution that's going to solve it. It's got to be a lot of different components looking
Right.
at it. It can't just be, again, a one and done. And, I know when I was looking for jobs, I would go on Glassdoor
Yep.
and read the reviews.
Yep.
And,
Yeah, they're known for that. They're the ones that always have the reviews on there, right? They're strong
yeah,
about
yeah.
reviews.
And the cool thing is that when somebody responds about a company, the company can't just go and remove that. They
Right.
can do a response to that,
Response. Yep.
which I think is key and really important. So any of the larger companies really need to, if they haven't done so already, get onto Glassdoor and then
Right.
have somebody designated to respond to those, because I mean
I
that
like
should be
that.
very
I
trusted.
love it when I see companies do that, because they do it very professionally.
Right,
Listen, you want to go on there and tell them shoot, but they put it so clean cut. You're like, okay, and they'll even invite people back. No,
right,
you come in and
yep,
let's discuss. If you're saying this, that's not right. You'll see that, and I kind of like that. But if you just let it go,
right.
that's part of when you got to look at it. I would say that's part of
Mhm.
cost of doing business because of
Mhm.
reviews.
Yep.
And you are right. Glassdoor does do that. I haven't been on there in so long.
Yeah, there was a company that I was going to interview with, and I saw the reviews, and it was bad after worse after bad after
Yeah.
worse. I'm like, there's no way. So I just told them I can't do it, and they asked me why, and I told them about Glassdoor, and they
See?
did their thing, and I'm like, I just can't. I mean, there was so much negativity about this company. I'm like,
Some you can't make it up. You can't make some of it up. When you
yeah,
see 4, 5, 6, 7 things in a row, the same
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
that's where I'm like, you need to do something. I mean,
yeah,
not all everybody puts negative. I put positive things on, and I tell people, get your happy people, get them on there. If you're happy at your work, and you said Sunday nights, if you like going to work, man, do a review for your company, because that goes a long way. Because
yes,
nobody, I do it all the time. I have 3 of them. I did it on mine now. I've done it on my own. I've done it on. I'll tell people, please, can you put something a review on there, because that will take care of some of that. But if you just let it go, I've seen 2.3 to 1.9s. I'm like,
right,
wow, they don't see this.
yeah, and so.
That's the cost of retention
Mhm.
of everything right there.
Yeah, and I think as long as the companies are looking at everything, and
Yep.
that was one of the other things that I wanted to mention is, like, when I say everything, I'm talking about everything.
Right.
Even to the point of going to Glassdoor and having somebody be that spokesman, and
Right.
take care of that, because I mean you if you want good candidates, and
Right.
if your candidates are going there, I mean you want
I
to
look
bring.
at reviews anymore on Amazon. When I buy
Mhm,
stuff now, it's so great, and I've
mhm,
made my decisions. And Amazon got smart. Get this, so on their app, when you order something, it'll tell you down below, this item has been returned a lot of times. And I'm thinking, why would they do that? But then I'm thinking, well, it makes common sense. If Amazon's putting that mark in there, it changed my mind that that probably saves them money
Right.
from you purchasing it. And I'm like, that's friggin' genius.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
like telling me, don't buy it, Dave. Dave, don't buy it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cheap. It don't work. But if they're doing that, there's got to be Amazon's very analytical, and that there I thought was genius. I was like,
Right.
okay, I'm going to buy something else.
Yeah, I mean, because there's some places that won't even like it's going to cost too much to even return it, so they're like,
Right.
just keep it, we'll refund you. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's crazy, but obviously they've done enough research that they know it's going to cost more to return it. So
And that they're saving cost. Why? Because at the end of the day, again, we've talked about employee engagement, the retention, the cost of recruiting, every single thing. Just like you said, there are so many things that come in that I didn't realize that. Wow, when you just start writing it down, man, you
yeah,
better start nipping some of that stuff in the butt,
right.
and knocking it off your bucket list. Phew.
Right. And I think as long as you know what your cost per hire is, and you
Right,
can even do it for each, department, because I mean, it's like HR is going to be different than operations and whatnot. So, but probably operations is the one you're going to be looking at and know,
right,
um, and then when you see your turnover happening
right.
in a specific time frame, is that normal? And if the turnover is happening with a specific department or manager, start to ask questions. Start, that the number is going to tell you something. So look at the
Yeah.
data. The data is going to help drive what you need to do next, and
What
I
you need
think
to
that's
do.
really the point of it.
Well, I looked at one of the other parts here, stress. Okay, for retention. When I love using AI, I love it all because it really brings this stuff out to you. So I like, again, you know how I like saying about I like wording. So it says the first thing right off the bat for retention and everything, understanding. I like that, understanding stress.
Mhm.
I kind of like that because I'm thinking it just doesn't say, stress, understanding. So what is it telling you? Are your people, or do we understand what stress is? Because then when you peel it back, I like how you say that.
Mhm.
Wow, does that open up the door of the doctor's visits that your employees go to, right? The high cost of healthcare. Why? Because of stress. Again, it all, they have the health and wellness now, and I did win
Mhm.
$200 one time because I had all my stuff done. And I can see why, because you think about it, I didn't realize how much stress has a lot to do with the retention cost and everything like that. All your cost on your P&L, everything, it has a lot to do with it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I mean, again, just making sure that we're all in tune with
Right.
all of that data. I mean, and if you have a high stress position, what can you do as a company to alleviate it? I mean,
Alleviate it. Yeah.
can you give a little bit of grace on, working from home, flexible hours? I mean, as long as it's not a factory job where you have to be there if you're making
Right.
cars. I mean, just it's got to be, specific for, that position.
That,
But
that goes.
just don't it doesn't we're not in the 1960s. We are, now 2025, crazy, almost 2026. I mean, just making sure that is what happened then doesn't necessarily need to happen now. I mean, we've
Right.
evolved. So if we can work remote, all the time or most of the time, like, let the flexibility happen. I mean, that's where the work life balance has really got to
Yep.
kick
And you're
in.
right. That's what it says right there, work-life balance for that reason.
Mhm.
And how much do you think of it is on the management team? Because it's when you look at it all, what tools is the management using? All right,
Mhm.
everything's the management, what they're doing, and like you said, to reduce it. And then one of the things is about like hybrid, all the stuff working from home, all different things. But there's also a lot of other things that they can policies. Look at the policies that they do, and they won't realize that how one policy can really change that ripple effect.
Mhm.
Again, that person's not going to leave. Why? Because you might have, again, that health and wellness. When people say that, listen, I went. I had my gallbladder. I would have not known that.
Mhm.
If you go and get things done, can't everything. Men's checkups, women's checkups. They're not doing it to tell you go to the doctors. It is saving them money, but it's also saving your life.
Right,
You
right.
know.
Well, I mean, what got you here is not going to get you there. So,
Right.
I mean, things change, and this is still relevant for today. So, I just think that as management and then as leaders of the company and owners of the company, I mean, you've got to be looking at the here and the now. I mean, we're not on dial-up anymore. We have fiber, so
Right.
really looking at your tools and the policies, procedures, is it still relevant today? I mean, if it's the last time you wrote it was in 1990.
Right.
uh, let's
Yeah.
re
Redo it. Right.
yes.
So, but I'll tell you what. Well, we are at that point. I can't see. I tell you, these
Yes,
shows, we start talking, and I didn't even get to my other 15 pages here. There's, I don't know why I do it. I didn't even get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I write my little notes up on top. There's my stress,
all right.
and there's my understanding engagement and recruitment costs, leaders retention costs. I just didn't realize how much it all came down to all that. And then on the
Yes,
ending for myself is I just wish, again, if as a team member, you can have a say in things, and if you can help reduce, it helps everybody. You're not going to get it all done at once because I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow, I could pick any company apart with this. I'd be
right.
saying, okay, what are you doing for here? I like how it says understanding engagement. So get that, reducing stress, understanding stress, but understanding engagement. There again, are you understanding it? Like, what does it mean? Okay, we can all say engagement, stress, but what do we do about it?
Right.
Do we just look the other way and you have people calling off because they're sick? If you can reduce that, can you imagine reducing call offs by doing a great health and wellness?
Yes,
I mean, it, it just God, I tell you, it just comes all together, on that part. So,
that's right.
well, young lady, I want to thank you as always for coming on, and
Oh, thank you.
we almost hit that 50-minute part, but we will be back next week. And I wanted to say again, Amy, what are you doing at Stone Solutions Consulting? I always want to end with that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm the owner of Stone Solutions Consulting. I focused on the leadership development, the hiring for fit, effective communication, conflict management, delegation, and succession planning. So it's really once leaders truly understand the direction,
Right,
and they start to feel confident and comfortable. I mean, it's a huge change in how they react and respond. You
right,
think about water boiling at 212 degrees, that 1 degree difference, because at 211 it was just hot. At
right.
212, it's boiling. So that one
Well,
degree difference will make is a game changer, and that's what I enjoy about doing what I do, because I see those aha moments, and it's just
do
that
that.
1 degree difference. Yep.
All right, young lady. Oh, I'm a sneeze right on line. Sorry about that, everybody. Wow. So we'll be right back after this video.